Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of BHL's Movie Hour. Here's the podcast where we talk about a bunch of the movies that have been coming out lately, some of the ones I've watched recently. We talk about some of the most topical movie news, definitely not movie news from the past 4 weeks, because I had to miss a week of this pod. And then we go through the Reddit at the end, which is a little place where you can submit questions and posts and stuff for me to react to, things you want me to answer. So yeah, I'm sorry I missed the last one. I try to do these every couple of weeks. I was traveling to Scotland to see some friends, including Freddie, my other podcast co-host. But we're back now. We're back, and so we got lots to talk about here on this episode of BHL's Movie Hour. We're going to talk about a bunch of movies, obviously. Obviously. We're going to be talking about, I finally saw In the Heights. Going to be talking about The French Dispatch, The Eternals, Red Notice, some other films that I've seen recently, some news like the Disney Plus Day announcements and a World War Hulk movie, a bunch of trailers. It's going to be a good time, and then we go through the Reddit at the end. So let's just jump into this. There are time codes down below, by the way, if you want to click around to the various segments. First of all, mini reviews, the stuff that I've watched in the past 4 weeks. First on the list is In the Heights, which I have had recommended to me many times. In case you don't know what it is, it's a musical, a modern-day musical set in Washington Heights, and I don't think it's directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, but it has him involved in some capacity. He also makes a little cameo in the film, and I can see why this had so much buzz around it. It is one of the most enjoyable films I've seen all year, one of the most delightful films. It's just... It's such a pleasant experience. It's if you're kind of feeling down, or if it's sort of a rainy day and you want something kind of light, uplifting, and the songs are extremely catchy, all the performances are very, all the characters are very likable. It has kind of an uplifting message behind it. It's visually very, very nice. I love all the musical numbers and the musical style of it. I'm not a big Hamilton guy, but I'm guessing this is a similar style to Hamilton. It's singing, it's kind of rapping sometimes. It's sort of, I don't know, it's mostly singing, but it's a nice mix, and there's a lot of creative stuff in there. It's just a really, really wonderful film that, I don't know, I feel like lately I've been watching kind of, not sad movies, but I've seen a couple more serious films, and I don't know. I'm looking at the list right now, and it's not really reflected in this list, but I felt like I was anyway. This just felt like a nice breath of fresh air, where it was something really light and fun and really well made. My only complaint would be that it's a little long. It's a little on the long side. I think it's 2.5 hours, and there are a couple of scenes, couple of songs. There's one with the grandma in particular, which I get, emotional resonance that I still feel like could have been cut. It's okay, it probably didn't have to be this long, but overall, just a really delightful musical. Highly recommend that if you haven't seen it already. We have Dune, which I did a review for. I quite liked the more time that's passed, the kind of little more iffy I am on it. I still really like it, but I don't think it's one of my favorites of the year. It wouldn't be in my top 5 of the year so far, but still excellent film, visually stunning, and a great, like I said, I think more of a cool cinema experience than an amazing story, in my opinion. Then I saw The French Dispatch, the latest Wes Anderson film. Super excited for this. I'm a big fan of Wes Anderson. I also like the idea of seeing it kind of feels like you're watching history being made in a way when there's a very talented director of our time, because especially now that I'm in film class, you hear about all these directors and over the course of history, and so to feel like you can see almost that being written and go see that director's films in the cinema and be yeah, I saw Wes Anderson's movies in the cinema. It's just a cool feeling, and this was actually the first Wes Anderson film I have seen in the cinema, and I mean, now I've given that whole thing, and I wasn't crazy about it actually, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite. Honestly, it might be my least favorite Wes Anderson film. That's not to say it's bad. I still liked it overall. I still think it's a good film overall. But I'm trying to think, of the ones I've seen, Rushmore, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Grand Budapest, Isle of Dogs. I think this was probably my least favorite. Good stuff. Great performances all around. I mean, of course, everyone knows this crazy cast. The Wes Anderson style is still very charming and fun, and had a few moments that made me laugh pretty hard. As you'd expect, visually, it's in that exact Wes Anderson style, and it's very nice. It even deviated a little bit from the Wes Anderson style occasionally, which I actually kind of liked. It made some moments more impactful when they did actually go away from that, very symmetrical kind of, the Wes Anderson look. My biggest problem with it was I felt like the story at times, I felt like it was almost, the film was almost too Wes Anderson-y, where, no spoilers, but if you don't want to know anything, probably click to the next one, but I won't spoil anything. This is just about like the structure of the film. In case you haven't seen it, and this isn't a spoiler, but it's sort of it's a film divided into multiple stories. So it has like the overall framework, and then there are 3 different stories told within that. And the first and the third story I quite liked, but the middle one is the Timothée Chalamet one, and it just, how Wes Anderson movies are, where people talk a certain way, like they use kind of, how do I say this without sounding like a very stupid person? Like a certain type of language, you know what I mean? Like a very sort of sophisticated, quirky kind of way. Like people don't talk like that in real life. And they talk very, very fast, and it's in that Wes Anderson style where it's lots of information. It's very meta at times. It's like, and I feel like in Grand Budapest Hotel it has that, but it never got confusing or hard to follow, and it is very charming and funny. And in this one, it sometimes was very charming and funny, and I could follow what was happening. In the Timothée Chalamet one, I missed something. I missed like the core of the premise at the very start of that segment, because it was in that very Wes Anderson style. And then I was just like I vaguely understood what was happening, but I felt kind of lost and throughout that segment, and so I couldn't really appreciate the comedy, and it felt almost like an inside joke that you're not a part of. And like the story and the beats it hits, it feels like, and maybe I'm just stupid, there's always that possibility, but I like to think that I'm not. I like to think I'm not that stupid, and I was like paying attention. It's just because I think it went like and then there's like a cutaway to a gag about this, and then there's a story within the story, and then and you kind of start to wonder, like, where are we? What is specifically is going on? And that makes it harder to get engaged. And again, I think it's just because like there was one part in the setup that I didn't quite understand, and then the whole thing was like, what is happening? So there was a bit of that in that segment especially, and then just throughout the film in general. So I felt like it almost was a little too Wes Anderson-y for its own good, and that made it a little convoluted and not as like fun to follow, I suppose. Although the first segment, I think, what is it, Benicio del Toro in that one? That was great. But yeah, overall, a solid film, but definitely not my favorite Wes Anderson movie, personally. Yeah, between this and The Green Knight, I feel like I'm just giving the impression that I'm a really dumb person who, like, doesn't understand any movies. I don't know. Anyway, then we have You, the TV show You, which I have now watched 2 seasons of. I really like it. I do, honestly. It's a very, and I say this with love, but it's a very goofy show. Like, there are really cheesy lines of dialogue, really over-exaggerated characters, really dumb moments. I said this on the Poorly Planned podcast. It's like, if you watch it with a friend, it's very easy to make fun of. Like, there are tons of dumb moments and conveniences, and like, how would they not figure this out and all that you can point out. But it's a very intriguing's not the right word. What am I looking for? Like, engaging show. It keeps you hooked. Because, I can say all that, but then I also did binge watch like 4 episodes in a row, which I never do with a show. And that's just like, yeah, because you want to know what happens next. It does a great job of setting up this mystery and setting up that you want to learn what happens next. It's a very well like structured show in terms of what they reveal and basically what the characters find out, because we already know that Joe, the main guy, is, a horrible, creepy murderer man. And then as the other characters figure it out, it's very engaging to watch that slowly progress. And then when it finally all hits the fan and they do figure it out, it's very intense. And yeah, it's very well done for the kind of show it is, in terms of like that building of the mystery and that tension, that keeping you, into it. And it is like, even though I say it's a goofy show, I'd rather have that and it being, kind of fun and kind of intriguing and cheesy than it being, super realistic and grim and terrible. There are grim and terrible moments, but like, because it's sort of, it doesn't take itself too seriously at times, and it has this comedic element to it and sort of this dark comedy to it, and it is sort of just a goofy show. It keeps it, fun enough where when these horrible things happen, it's not like so terrible that, it's just like really unpleasant and unwatchable, like the whole show. So I thought that was smart as well. And like the way they do it, and maybe I haven't watched a lot of like serial killer, bad guys, the main character shows. Like I've heard Dexter is similar in some ways. But I think it is really an interesting idea to make the main character like this horrible creep man, but then also you follow him and he has redeeming moments at times, and like they try to flesh out his backstory and like the way he treats, the way he does have empathy for some characters, especially the kids in the first 2 seasons. But then of course he's like a completely, terrifying, horrible human being. And so, I don't know, in the way, like, he has this comedic edge to his, like, narration, or, like, his internal thoughts that we hear as narration throughout. I think it's a really interesting way to tell that kind of story, and I can see why it's such a big show. It is very accessible, I suppose. Partly because it's sort of dumb. I'm not saying that, like, a show needs to be dumb for it to be accessible, but also because, yeah, it definitely keeps you gripped. So I can see why it's so big, and yeah, I am enjoying it, definitely. I can sit here and try to be on my high horse, but I do enjoy it for sure. And then should I throw in the UFC stuff here? Might as well, Hey, that's BHL's movie hour, BHL's movie / UFC hour. That's what this is. If you don't care about UFC, you can skip ahead if you want. But we had some just crazy, I mean, how can I not talk about it? The past 4 weeks have been crazy cards. If they've just been banger after banger after banger. We had Vettori versus Costa. Great main event, lots of fun kind of drama around that with the weight missing of Costa. Also, I just want to point out, I just think it's funny because I went back and watched all of Marvin Vettori's fights in the lead up to that one, and Paulo Costa's as well. And I just thought it was funny that Marvin Vettori must be the most fouled against fighter in UFC history. Like almost every single fight, this guy either gets eye poked or kicked in the nuts or just something happens, and it happened in this one as well. And I'm like, this guy must have like the most pokeable eyes in the entire UFC. But that was a great fight. Then we had UFC 267 in Abu Dhabi with just some incredible, I mean, there was a fight between Petr Yan and Corey Sandhagen that was amazing. That's just one of those fights where I was so excited for it because it's like when two unstoppable forces meet each other. I know Corey Sandhagen's lost a few, but you just can't really picture either of them losing that badly, Again, I know Corey Sandhagen kind of has, but going into that, it's such a intriguing style clash. And it was just so exciting. And it played out pretty much exactly how you'd expect. Corey started strong, then Petr kind of builds as he goes and took him down. I mean, he didn't literally take him down, but, won the fight. Excellent stuff. And the main event also super shocking. Sad because I'm a big Jan Blachowicz fan, but, you can't not be happy for Glover. And I'm a big Dan Hooker fan, so the way his fight ended was also pretty, not fun. But it is what it is. And then UFC 268 a week later. Another crazy card. I mean, these 2 cards back to back, and like there were like 6 knockouts in a row in the prelims, and then like 2 fight of the year contenders back to back. Of course, we had Gaethje versus Chandler, which if you don't care about UFC, like, and you just want to see insanity, like you just want to see 2 insane people throwing everything they can at each other, knocking each other down, wobbling each other, being just it's a crazy fight. It's a fight you show to someone who doesn't watch UFC, I mean, my go-to is always Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier because that fight like has everything. It's so brutal and intense and just like exemplifies like heart and excitement and all that good stuff about a UFC fight. But this one is also up there of just like maybe not technique-wise as much. I mean, of course there's high-level technique, but it was more just like an absolute like the scrap of all scraps, So Gaethje Chandler, check that out. And then the main event, Usman Covington, pretty much went how I expected. Still a good competitive fight, but Usman winning, So yeah, that's what I predicted. I predicted Usman by decision. And there you go. And then we had the week after that, we had Holloway versus Rodriguez, another absolute banger, just a crazy fight. yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a good time to be a UFC fan. The card later today, I'm recording this on Saturday. The card is the Ketlin Vieira versus Miesha Tate card. Not as, now it's got to slow down a little bit, which honestly I'm fine with, because I need a chance to breathe a little bit here with all the UFC stuff going on. Although Chiesa versus Brady, amazing fight right there. And Giannis versus Grant, super excited for that one as well. In the main event, it should be fine, I guess. I'm not super bothered about that. But anyway, yeah. So UFC, it's a good time to be a UFC fan. If you're not a UFC fan, jump on board the hype train. It's a good time, man. It's a good time. I'm just saying, there was also Hamzat's win. That was crazy. But in terms of how UFC and film relate, there's a reason my two favorite, things to watch, or my favorite entertainment mediums, or whatever it would be, are film and UFC and, MMA, Because there's a big crossover there of... especially if you like action movies, of course there's lots of action in UFC, but in terms of probably my favorite thing about UFC is the storyline and the people involved. Obviously the fights are incredible and the technique and all that breakdown, but it's also because you care about the people in it, and you have these, watch a UFC promo and tell me it doesn't look like a trailer for a movie. Watch the McGregor Poirier 3 trailer and tell me that doesn't look like that couldn't be a trailer for a Marvel movie, It's that same vibe, it's that same, and there's so much crossover. It really is its own cinematic universe where all these different characters, and then you're what would happen if this guy met this guy? And then throw in also their, different fighting styles. And it's so engaging. And yeah, there's a reason as a film fan why that converted to loving UFC as well. And there are different elements to it, of course, but I don't know. I think if you love film, which I'm assuming you do if you're listening to this, UFC, it's worth looking into. I'm just saying. Then, for my film class, I watched Double Indemnity, a classic, well, you can guess we were studying noir, so one of the classic noirs from 1944, I want to say. Great film, yeah, very engaging, very, there might be a bit of a stereotype around black and white films, oh, it's gonna be boring. Wasn't boring at all. That's a dumb stereotype anyway, but I'm just I feel I held that view for a little bit, and yeah, it was just as engaging as any kind of mystery or noir kind of film that you could see today. There's a reason it's a classic. And there was something else I believe I watched for film class. Oh yeah, Rear Window by probably Hitchcock's most famous film, or second most famous, I guess, Psycho. Yeah, this film class is really filling out my Hitchcock filmography watching, and yeah, it's great. What do you want me to say? One of the best movies of all time. It's pretty good. I did enjoy it. Yeah, it's fun mystery, intriguing, great performances, very engaging throughout. I guess that's all there is to say about it, really. Then I did watch The Sparks Brothers, which is Edgar Wright's, well, not his latest film. I have not seen Last Night in Soho yet because it does not come out in the cinema that's close to where I live in Ireland, which is great because it comes out in the cinema that's an hour away, so that's wonderful, but it doesn't come out in the one that's a 20-minute walk away. So, love and life on that front. So I have not seen Last Night in Soho, and I probably won't for a while, probably not until I'm back in Denmark or until it comes out on iTunes or whatever it is. But anyway, enough of my sadness. There's The Sparks Brothers, which is his documentary film that came out earlier this year about Sparks, the band Sparks, which I was not familiar with at all. And that's kind of the point of the documentary a little bit, where it's just such a weird, intriguing world that, that's sort of the point of the documentary, that you haven't heard of them ever, or you're a super fan and they're your favorite thing ever. And it's this just wild story of, this band, these two brothers who created all this creative, weird, crazy music. Not exactly my taste in music, but it's just a really, an intriguing story. It's a very captivating watch, and you're just thinking how have I never heard of these people? And again, my only complaint would be with what we're talking about, In the Heights, little on the long side, but Super fun. I mean, also, it's an Edgar Wright documentary, so it has like super fun editing and lots of, creative storytelling in there of this documentary story. And yeah, it keeps it engaging throughout. So even if you've never heard of these guys, which I had not, it's worth a watch, I would say. Definitely a really interesting documentary. Quick reminder here that if you're enjoying this podcast, drop a like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on what I talked about down below. Also, check out my other podcast, The Poorly Planned Podcast. All right, back to the video. Then I watched Passing, which is the new Netflix film. I believe it's Rebecca Hall's directorial debut, starring Tessa Thompson. I thought it was good. I thought it was good. Everyone's great in it. It's really well shot. I love the music. I love the musical theme that kind of comes on throughout at different points throughout the film. It's like the aesthetic of it. Everything is like very well presented. Like it's a very believable world. Nothing ever takes you out of it. Putting it in black and white is, I mean, it's not like the most, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the link to the theme there, but I thought it really enhanced like the storytelling and worked for the film. And yeah, it's a super interesting premise as well. Funnily enough, as opposed to Sparks Brothers and In the Heights, I think this one actually was maybe a little too short. It's about 90 minutes, and I feel like that doesn't give it enough time to really explore that premise that much, or at least as much as I feel like you could, because it's a really interesting premise, and there's so many layers to it to unpack. And I feel like it does that well for the time it's given, but I felt like it had a bit more time. It could have really gone into that more and been a bit more just emotionally resonant. But overall, a solid film. Yeah, it's on Netflix, so you can give that a watch. It's quite good. And speaking of Netflix films, I did watch Red Notice with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Ryan Reynolds. And, God, I mean, this legitimately, I think, is the most cliche action movie, cliche action comedy I've ever seen in my life. The thing is, though, I did enjoy it. I did like it. It made me laugh a couple of times. But it kind of just astounded me, how predictable and just every cliche. It felt so much like a fake movie inside a movie. It's okay, we have I don't know, it's we have two, of the most charismatic, beloved movie stars, or three. We also have Gal Gadot, we have The Rock and Ryan Reynolds. They're a buddy cop team. One's a cop, one's a criminal. They're cracking jokes. They don't like each other. One's more serious, one's more goofy, and then they do a heist, and then they do this, and and every single action scene has every action movie cliche, and I mean, it was astounding how, again, it felt like a fake movie inside of a movie. That's the only way I can put it. But it was still enjoyable. I mean, if you put it on paper, this should have been my favorite movie of all time. I love a buddy comedy. I love an action movie. I love a heist movie. I love something that has kind of an Indiana Jonesy feel to parts of it. This has all of that. It has two of my favorite, modern blockbuster stars. It was enjoyable, I suppose. I was entertained enough, and I chuckled a couple times. Made me laugh pretty hard once or twice, but I mean, it was so, just painfully, I don't want to say generic, but cliched. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I really wanted to say about it. I mean, the action's solid. The performances are good. I will say, the dialogue also, it didn't even, considering you have two of the funniest and most charming actors in blockbusters today, the dialogue and the delivery felt kind of wooden at times and felt unnatural, and at times I was thinking, why didn't you just let Ryan Reynolds improvise here? He's delivering some of these lines well, but then some others it feels really forced and not funny. And some of Dwayne's lines, again, they just are these such cliche action movie lines that no one could sell them. It just sounds like a cliche no matter what. Honestly, this reminded me so much when I was a little BHL backstory here, but growing up, I made a ton of action movies with my cousin when I would see him, and we would make these, just ridiculous action movies when, in our house, and when we went to the beach or whatever, and it would be starring me and my cousin and my other cousin and my grandpa and all this kind of stuff, just those are my favorite memories. But looking back on them as we made them, also when we were 10 to 15 or whatever, they have every action movie cliche in the book. All the action scenes are super cliche, and all the dialogue is like over dramatic, and like, I don't do that anymore kind of thing. Like, I'm retired. All that stuff. And of course, I love it. I'm not talking any smack about those movies because they're amazing, if I do say so myself. But I mean, those were made by kids having fun and just making a thing for the fun of it. And this genuinely felt like a big budget version of that. Like, if you take the same dialogue and the same story and put it like low budget, those are the movies that me and my cousin made, over the years. And I don't know, I just thought that was funny that like it really reminded me of that. And I mean, there's just so many dumb moments in it that are like, I was gonna say this is the perfect movie for CinemaSins, but like, you don't have to be CinemaSins. You don't have to be you could be anyone watching this. Not that CinemaSins are like amazing at finding super small details or whatever, but I mean, I guess that's supposed to be their job. Anyway, let's not go on a CinemaSins thing here, but like, you don't have to be even looking for them to just think like, why would they do that ever? Like, it has such obvious dumb moments that it feels like a parody, but it doesn't feel self-aware enough to be a parody. Like, I'm fine with dumb moments in a cheesy dumb action movie, but it just, it was so, some of the moments were so obvious that it's like, I can't, I know exactly where this is going, so why would I care about any of this on top of it already being super predictable and cliche? Anyway, I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it. All of that to say, I sort of liked it. But yeah, just prepare for like the most basic form of an action comedy of all time. But I mean, Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne are kind of a fun pairing, I guess. I don't know. I feel like it could have been more fun. Like, they could have done more with that pairing. Then I also saw Spencer, the Princess Diana movie. Pretty good. I think like Kristen Stewart is great in it, and production-wise, everything is amazing, like the sets and everything, and the costumes, so I'm sure it'll win the Oscar for that stuff. I just don't really care. Like, that sounds like a weird movie complaint. It's just a personal thing. I don't really have an interest in the royal family and all this stuff, and so I just didn't really engage with it on that level. Like, if you are interested in this stuff, I'm sure this is an amazing film, because it's really well made and well acted, but just because I don't really have a particularly interested in that kind of thing, I just was like, I don't know, didn't really stick with me, but it's a good film for sure. And then finally, The Eternals. I did see The Eternals. I wasn't able to make a review because I've been super busy lately. Hopefully, maybe I can make like a little video about it sometime, but I thought I'd also just talk about it here in case I don't get the chance to do that. It's a tough one. I don't think it's bad. I think it's very much just an average tier MCU movie. I thought it was like, but it's a little bit different from, it's an average tier movie for different reasons than something like Ant-Man and the Wasp or Captain Marvel, where I just feel like those are, kind of generic superhero movies, and they have, the comedy you'd expect and the action you'd expect, and it's fine, but it feels kind of soulless almost. Like, this one didn't really have that. It was just more, I appreciate that they went for something different in a way. I just feel like they didn't commit to it enough for it to have an impact. So, I mean, it was 2.5 hours long, so I get that they didn't want to make it longer, but I don't know, it felt like it was just like scratching the surface of trying something new and different, and, it's a great concept, and there's a lot to explore with it, with these people who've been here for thousands of years, and what, trying to guide humanity, and how that would be demoralizing, seeing, where humanity goes, and questioning your existence and your purpose and all this stuff. And it touches on those things, but just it doesn't do much with it, or as much as I think they could have if they sort of committed more to it. And I think you could have done that more if you cut out some of the comedy and or some of the, I don't know, I liked Kumail a lot, and I liked his cameraman guy. I thought that was funny, but it did feel a little bit like, hey, it's a Marvel movie, we gotta remember to have the funny thing in. And I was thinking, if maybe you'd committed to making this more of I don't know, an in-depth okay, this sounds like I want a crazy art film or whatever, but if you committed more to making something different, and maybe it wasn't like some of the trailers looked, maybe if it wasn't the funniest MCU movie, and you didn't have to have you could have comedy when it's natural. There's an example that I'm trying to think of, a superhero movie that did this, and I can't think of it right now, but you can work these things in organically, but just trying to tell this story that's, could have a really I don't know, a lot of really interesting layers to it. I think they could have done better. And I think if they did that, they could also made it easier to access, because a lot of the people I saw it with afterwards said like, yeah, I didn't get what was happening. And I think maybe if you'd focused more on it, you could have made it clearer what was happening. I don't know, it feels a little bit jumbled at times, but that's my main complaint with it. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it does well the things you'd think it would do well. It has a great cast. Brian Tyree Henry is very good. Kumail's very good. I mean, everyone's pretty good, yeah. I wasn't crazy about Angelina Jolie or Richard Madden's performances, but I can't really think of a good reason why, so, you know, that's not a great complaint to make about a movie if you can't back it up. And visual effects, you know, there's some really stunning shots in there. And again, the concept is good. Like, the concept is interesting on its own. I just don't care about it, really. That's the problem. At the end of the movie, there's, like, an establishing shot of a bunch of the heroes. And I just thought to myself, like, I don't care about any of these characters. I've spent 2.5 hours watching this movie. I don't care about any of them. And that's really it. You know, like, I like a lot of them, but I don't care about... I'm not... If we never saw another Eternals movie, I wouldn't really care. I didn't really think about this movie much after seeing it. You know, that's the kind of film it was for me. Solid, like, it was. That's the thing. I'm saying all the negatives. It was, but the thing about the positives is they're just kind of like baseline things that, you know, that make it like not a bad movie. But there's nothing really much to say. Like, it was fun. It was entertaining. It's what you'd expect from Marvel. You know, like it had great visual effects and it had its funny moments and likable actors and yeah. That was good. But otherwise, like, I feel like there was just, like, a bit of wasted potential there. And it made it a little bit of a forgettable film, personally. And, yeah, those are the mini reviews. Not really mini, just a bunch of reviews, really. And now let's talk about some news from the past several weeks. Let's see. I mean, some of this stuff I can cut out because it's such old news that, like, we don't really have to talk about it. But, like, we had the No Way Home trailer. I've already talked about that in my video, so you can go check out that video on my YouTube channel, although we also had some posters, especially the one with Doctor Strange and then Green Goblin in the background. I mean, it's pretty funny that like the Sony MCU movies have just the worst posters. I mean, like, there's like generic superhero movie poster of like it's just a bunch of heads floating around and one, you know, big person and then one smaller person and whatever, you know. That's fine, like, it's nothing special, but, you know, it's fine. But the Sony ones are like especially bad. And I don't get why. Like, if it's your specific job to, I assume it's because they found like, oh, if we make a poster a certain way, like it gets more, you know, clicks and more people, you know, engage with it or whatever. But you have to be able to see that it looks bad, right? I mean, the Spider-Man poster with Doctor Strange looks bad, and the one they made for Venom was bad, and the one they made for Far From Home, like the Homecoming posters, a lot of those were great. There was that one terrible one, but a lot of them were really, really fun, you know, with like Spider-Man like lying down in the city in the background or whatever. That was fun and creative. And now they're just like, yeah, they're just like, here are characters. And I guess it's effective, but it doesn't look good. Anyway, speaking of Tom Holland, we had the trailer for Uncharted. I feel like this got a lot of hate, or a bit of hate. I liked it. You know, I haven't played the Uncharted games, but I'm familiar with them. And I've, you know, even with Red Notice, like, I'm here for adventure films. I feel like we don't get a lot of, like, adventure-y films anymore, like an Indiana Jones, you know, and obviously Uncharted, having not played them, but I'm assuming is quite heavily inspired by Indiana Jones. And so to get a new version of that, like, yeah, it's probably not going to be great because it's a video game movie, and it didn't look like the best movie ever, but it looked kind of fun. I'm excited. Then there was also the trailer for Ambulance, new Michael Bay movie. I mean, it looks extremely Michael Bay, you know, that man sure does not deviate from his style. He's a real Wes Anderson in that way. I mean, you watch it and immediately you would know it's a Michael Bay movie. It looks fine. I don't know. I'm not really crazy about it. I don't really care either way. There was a trailer for Morbius. I think this looks really bad, personally. It just looks like a really generic Sony movie of just like, I just think it's going to be kind of boring, kind of dull and cliche and generic, and I'm not looking forward to it. But maybe it'll be really good. Who knows? Bill Murray accidentally let loose that he's in Ant-Man 3, so that's exciting. I don't know if he's... if I'm remembering correctly, the way his quote went was kind of like, he was like, yeah, I tried it. Like, I tried a Marvel movie. Isn't that fun? Like, sort of funny. He was also like, yeah, I can't tell you which one, but it's the one directed by Peyton Reed. It's like, oh, okay, well, all right, Bill Murray. Although, isn't Peyton Reed doing Fantastic Four? So maybe... Well, no, but that hasn't started filming yet, so yeah, it wouldn't be that. So yeah, he's in Ant-Man 3. So I don't know if he's going to be like a recurring character. I think maybe they just got him in for like maybe a cameo. People have speculated maybe he'll be MODOK, in a fun little role. But I think they'd probably want to keep MODOK around for future films if they were going to introduce him. And it didn't sound like Bill Murray had like signed a multi-picture deal. So I don't know. I think maybe it'll just be like a little fun cameo. But yeah, cool. I like Bill Murray. As do most people, I assume. There's a World War Hulk movie in development, apparently. So that's kind of interesting. I'm curious how they're going to do that because, of the like worldly ramifications of that storyline. Obviously, World War Hulk. It's a curious one because it's kind of a big like event in the MCU. And so like I wonder, because it seems like they're going in such a big multiverse direction, that I wonder if they can now do the big event movie being like World War Hulk, and if they would want to like build up to that in like a phase or something. I don't know. I'm curious how they would do that, but sure. I mean, that's the Hulk story that and Planet Hulk that, everyone knows and everyone's familiar with and likes, so why not? World War Hulk? Sure, that's cool. No like official info on that yet, but yeah, that's interesting. Sure. Mark Ruffalo is sure getting his paychecks in. He's in a lot of these MCU movies, and he's always quite delightful in them. So it's all good. Because he's also in like She-Hulk. He popped up in Shang-Chi. I feel we're seeing a lot of him, and I don't have a problem with it. I feel like Hulk is a great side character to have in there, and Bruce Banner as well. And I guess if you want to be a main character, this is the story to do. Then we're getting a Harry Potter special on January 1st on HBO Max, where they're going to like go through the Harry Potter films. It's going to be Radcliffe, Watson, and I was about to say Weasley. What's his name? Rupert Grint reunited for the first time in a while. I'm really excited for that. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, so I feel like that news went kind of under the radar. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, January 1st, that's going to be on HBO, apparently. We had the Lightyear trailer. Saw some memes about this. People are not a fan of the Lightyear guy design, the Chris Evans Buzz Lightyear. But so from my understanding, this is based on an astronaut in the world of Toy Story that then the toy was based on. So this is the real guy in the Toy Story world. I heard some people saying it's this movie is a movie that exists in the Toy Story world, and that's what the toy is based on. I don't think so. I thought it was this movie takes place in the Toy Story world. None of this matters. What am I saying? Anyway, I mean, the trailer looked fine, but yeah, once you kind of see the memes about the the design, it is kind of funny. I don't know, but yeah, it looked pretty interesting, I guess. Sure. Then the Disney Plus Day stuff will end with this. The big Star Wars news. I mean, the Star Wars news that I was interested in was the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. They had a little teasery thing for that, and in it is confirmed that Hayden Christensen is coming back as Darth Vader, and it's heavily implied that there will be some Obi-Wan Darth Vader dueling in there, which I'm sure, lots of Star Wars fans are super excited about, and even I'm super excited about, and I'm not even a huge Star Wars fan, but that is one of the shows that I am looking forward to and that I will be interested in watching, kind of similar to like The Mandalorian. Like some of this other stuff, I'm not crazy about, or not that I don't like it, but I don't have a huge interest in. This is one of the ones that I am quite interested in, so yeah, excited for that. And then last piece of news, all the MCU stuff. I mean, there was tons of MCU stuff announced. We went through it briefly on the Poorly Planned, but there's Hawkeye, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, Ironheart, Agatha, House of Harkness, Secret Invasion, Guardians Holiday Special, X-Men 97, What If Season 2, Spider-Man Freshman Year, Marvel Zombies, I Am Groot. I'll be making a little short of ranking these and how excited I am for them. And overall, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff here, and I'm interested in a lot of these. But yeah, like we mentioned on the Poorly Planned, when you look at it in a list form, man, it is a lot of stuff. I love the MCU, in case it wasn't obvious, I'm a fan of the MCU. But at a certain point, you think, man, sometimes you don't want to overload the system. You don't want to overwhelm people. And I mean, they're now putting out so much content now with all this stuff. And these are some things I don't know, like Agatha, House of Harkness. Do we really need a spin-off of Agatha from WandaVision? She can pop up in other things, but Like, what's a spin-off with her gonna entail? I don't know. That one I'm not crazy about, but some of these have great stories, and I'm excited to see that, like Secret Invasion, and I'm excited for another season of What If. And yeah, like, it is definitely cool that we can have now basically a comic universe on screen. Like, they can make it so expansive and make so much stuff, and they have all the money in the world to make it like high budget, even on a TV show. But yeah, it is a lot of stuff. But hey, of all of this, probably most excited for Moon Knight. Although, Secret Invasion and Marvel Zombies. Because the Marvel Zombies episode of What If, there were some problems with the episode, but I did enjoy the episode, and I really loved the premise, and I felt like there was so much you could explore, and you could make a whole like show about that, and I was kind of hoping like we would revisit that world in season 2, and now we're getting a whole show about it. I don't know if it'll be in the What If style, but that's exciting. X-Men 97 also, I never watched the X-Men cartoon growing up, but I'm sure that's very exciting for the people who did, It's the equivalent of like if they announced they were making more Justice League Unlimited episodes, I would freak out about that. So, yeah, exciting, good stuff. And now let's jump over to the Reddit. All right, the BHL Hudson Reddit, r/BHL Hudson. Check it out, where you can post whatever you want, and I'll talk about it in the podcast. So, fun stuff. We're at 232 members. Pretty sure that was the same number as last time. All good. But please do follow the Reddit, I guess. Yeah, or join it, or whatever it is. But yeah, let's just go through this. Yeah, again, sorry it's been a couple weeks, but I'm back. Thoughts on The Lighthouse from Juice Beaver. First of all, interesting name. Thoughts on The Lighthouse. I personally love it. I personally really enjoyed it as well. I do enjoy, at least in small doses, I wouldn't want to binge them, but I do enjoy these really weird movies that really, like, are kind of trippy and make you think and are kind of unsettling and, yeah, just weird, but is super well made, weirdly funny at times, and super dark and creepy and strange. Yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, The Lighthouse, a big recommend. Do you ever like to watch bad movies and focus just on the things you like? Interesting. I don't know if I ever focus on just the things I like in bad movies, but I do watch bad movies sometimes for the fun of them being, the only case I watch a bad movie is either if it's so bad it's good, or if I have to, like for like a video, or if it was like a school thing, or if like friends put it on and, I'm not gonna be that guy. I was like, no, I refuse to watch this. But, like on my own, I don't think I ever watch it just to focus on the things I like. But there are like bad movies, like movies that overall I would think are bad that do have like great stuff in them. Like Kingsman: The Golden Circle, I would say isn't a great movie, but I have rewatched it a few times. But mostly in that case, I'll just rewatch the clips, like those parts of the film that I like. And otherwise, yeah, if it's so bad it's good, then yeah, I'll watch that on occasion. And yeah, I'll never really watch a movie that I don't like anything about. I don't know why I would do that. But yeah, and so bad it's good movies I usually watch like with people though. Like more fun that way personally. Anyone else see this? Who is punching Lizard in the new... Yeah, I saw this right after because my video was the new... my video was literally my reaction, so I hadn't, seen anything, and then I saw this. And yeah, it's completely obvious that they left it in on purpose, they're very clever with this Marvel. They throw these things in there that the fans can find, because they know the culture that we're in now, where there are lots of trailer breakdowns and reactions and posts on social media, and that's how that's half of marketing a film, these days. And so they're like, okay, we can't leave it in the main trailer because that's too obvious. We'll put it in the Brazilian trailer. I hope I don't sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist. I genuinely think they do this stuff on purpose to get people talking about it, which is smart, There's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, they've obviously edited it out. I think in that shot, they've obviously edited out both of the Spider-Men. I even said that in my trailer video before this came out, because that shot just looks like that kind of climactic shots. There are 3 villains. There are going to be 3 Spider-Men. And yeah, they, you think they didn't notice this super obvious big thing, But yeah, it's fun. It's a fun little tease. I like they make it fun to talk about the trailers and that kind of thing by doing this sort of stuff. So, yeah. Which Holy Trilogy is the best? Yeah, I would say Dark Knight Trilogy is better than the Spider-Man Trilogy. Not that means the Spider-Man Trilogy is bad, but yeah, the Dark Knight one is better, I would say. Which one is better, Inception or Interstellar? I would also say Inception just has just feels like a more complete film. I feel like it's more rewatchable, for me at least. and it's more emotional for me. I know Interstellar has, the big daughter video scene, but Inception just overall feels like a more complete and compelling film to me. Best comic book movie of 2018. Wow. Damn. Not even one for the others. That's interesting. Yeah, that's tough. Infinity War or Spider-Verse. I think Spider-Verse is a better film overall, but I think for what Infinity War was, like the event that it was and the build up to it and how much pressure was on it to be good, and the fact that it like delivered on that makes it almost like more than a film. It was like an experience when Infinity War and Endgame came out. Jesus. But overall, the better film would probably be Spider-Verse. So how's that for a non-answer? Best comic book movie of 2017. Interesting. Yeah, it would be Logan, but for me, Homecoming, not too far behind. Honestly, I'm surprised it only has one vote. I really love Homecoming. Maybe, has that gotten like more hate recently? I don't know. I think that's a great movie. I think it's really funny and kind of heartwarming and a good movie. But Logan, transcends all of these, and it's just a very emotional, great film, independent of being, a superhero movie, which some of these are as well, but Logan is just like, yeah, it's an incredible film. It's very good. Best comic book movie of 2016. Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here from Super Watto. I would go probably Civil War or Deadpool. And you know what? Apocalypse isn't that terrible. 2015, oof. I guess Age of Ultron. I've been thinking about it. I always use Ant-Man as an example of like a mid-tier Marvel movie, which it kind of is, but I think I conflated a bit with Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is really like a very mediocre movie in my opinion. The original Ant-Man is actually pretty fun, and like I was watching some clips and like it has some pretty funny moments and some decently like creative action at times. So I feel like that gets more hate or harsh treatment from me than it probably should. But yeah, I'd say Age of Ultron and that are close for different reasons. 2014, yeah, that was a great year for superhero movies. I'd probably go, these three, Guardians, Days of Future Past, and Winter Soldier are tied for me, really. I mean, they're all amazing in their own way. I'd probably go Guardians, but it could flip to any of them, honestly. Does Eternals deserve to have a rotten score? I wouldn't say so. Do you watch much of Chris Stuckman? I used to. I mean, not a crazy amount, but I'd watch the occasional video. I don't really anymore. It's nothing against him. I just don't really anymore. I don't watch a ton of movie reviewers anymore. Like I don't watch Jeremy Johns. I'll watch Mr. Sunday. I'll watch, I do watch quite a few actually now that I'm thinking about it, but not as much like Chris Stuckman or Jeremy Johns and that kind of type. Again, not saying like they're bad or anything, but no. I don't. BHL, do you have Discord? I don't understand Discord, personally. Like, I have an account on it, but I don't understand, like... God, I sound like such an old man. I don't understand, like how you make, like, a room, or, like, how are you supposed to chat with people, or whatever. Like, I just use it for, personal use, but I don't understand any of the other stuff. Because I'm an old man, as it turns out. BHL Hudson needs to check out Cody Leach. If you're reading this, you need to check out a self-titled channel called Cody Leach. He's a channel that mainly focuses on horror, but once in a while reviews other TV shows and movies. I want this guy to become one of the most celebrated YouTubers out there. I don't know him personally, but I love the content he makes. Fair warning, he curses a bit. But a lot of people on YouTube, especially Markiplier, curse on the platform. Is Markiplier known for cursing on YouTube? You should check out my podcast. We curse a lot there. It is, of course, censored, though, for some reason. I don't know why. To everybody else reading this, please subscribe. Here's a link to his channel. Cody Leach. Yeah, okay. I will check him out. Thanks for the recommendation. Who would win in a horror fight franchise? God, I know nothing about horror movies, but Leprechaun, Candyman, Chucky, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers. I'll say Michael Myers, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, though. Eternals was... I would say good. Between good and mediocre would be my take. Do you prefer films that are showier with their style or films that prefer to keep their style more subtle? In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with either approach. I guess it comes down to a matter of personal taste and the story the filmmakers are trying to tell. Yeah, I mean, it's entirely dependent for me on the actual, film itself and what the film is going for. I don't know, like something like Kingsman isn't subtle at all, really, but that's one of my favorite movies where that style of filmmaking wouldn't work at all for, I don't know, something more subtle. My brain's fried, so I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but yeah, it's all dependent on what the actual film is going for, and that's why, when there's kind of a clashing of style with the story, or there's a weird mix of styles, that sometimes that can be nice, but when it's tonally inconsistent, just feels all over the place, that can be kind of a problem. Yeah, it comes down to what the filmmaker's the kind of film they're trying to make. My personal top 20 list. Let me know what you think. Top 20 films of all time, I'm guessing. Parasite, Interstellar, Social Network, Infinity War, Toy Story 2. Yeah, that looks like a pretty good list. How do you think the latest Mission Impossible films compare to Daniel Craig, James Bond? Which do you prefer? I think overall the latest Mission Impossible films have been better than the latest James Bond films. But I mean, they're both pretty good for what they're trying to do. They're trying to do slightly different things. I would say overall, though, the consistency of Mission Impossible 4, 5, 6 is better than the consistency of like Skyfall, Spectre, No Time to Die. And before that, like Quantum, you know? But, I mean, both still good, I'd say. Would you rather for BHL or any aspiring filmmakers in the Reddit? If you could only direct one film in your career, would you rather have your film win an Oscar for Best Picture or Best Director, or have your film become the highest grossing movie of all time? That is a good question. I mean, highest grossing movie of all time will probably make me more money in some way. Like, I'll probably get hired for bigger films, although winning Best Director will probably not hurt either. I don't know, I kind of... something I haven't really said before, and it's sort of dumb, and I don't want to be like held to this if I change my view on this, but I sort of have like a bit of a dream of winning an Oscar one day, which is like, I know it sounds super cheesy and whatever, but I think it partially comes from how much UFC I watch, because you see all these, like in the UFC the goal is to win the world title, because that means like you're the best in the world, and it's very different with an Oscar. The Oscar is voted on by people, and it's a completely different type of thing, but just like that visual of when people get the UFC belt wrapped around their waist, it's like a symbol of like, I did it. Like, I worked my ass off. I'm the best in the world at what I do. And I worked so hard to get here. And this is like, this thing physically shows that work. And again, super different in tons of ways with an Oscar. But just the idea of having that like thing, that object, that trophy that just can sort of symbolize like all the work that I put in and that I will put in. Like, I haven't obviously done the filmmaking work yet, but that I'm currently putting in and that I will put in. That's just like a personal dream of mine, I guess. I don't know. We're getting deep here, but having the highest grossing film wouldn't be bad either. But I'll take I'll take the Oscar. Good question though, Razmataz Thick 7621. Ladies and gentlemen, Baby's real killer track. Oh boy. Oh my god, that is the best thing I've seen in a long time. Just John Hamm's reaction. Okay, so basically the audio's playing is of me and Freddie on the Poorly Planned talking about how he would beat Olaf in a fight. Olaf from Frozen, long story. Anyway, that's incredible. I love the idea of Baby just listening to the Poorly Planned podcast when he goes in to take on John Hamm. That's so good. BHL, are there any random things that automatically bump up your ratings for movies? For me, whenever a film is set around Christmas, I immediately have some bias towards it. That's a good question. And that's, honestly, that might be one of mine, because I love Christmassy stuff. I'm a big fan of Christmas time. A movie having a happy ending might be something that biases me towards it, because, like, I like happy endings, obviously. Who doesn't? Maybe a film... I've talked about this, actually. A film set in, like, kind of either spring or fall, somewhere on the East Coast, like Washington, D.C., or, like, New York, in this kind of, like, kind of suburban-y environment. It's so weirdly specific. A Few Good Men is a good example. Parts of The Winter Soldier, even. That kind of vibe. The ending of the movie Jason Bourne from 2016, for some reason. That kind of vibe. That makes me automatically like a movie more. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's because I've lived in a similar-ish environment for parts of my life, and so I have like that connection there. But yeah, that's like a weird thing that no one else would really have a bias for, I think. But I automatically kind of like that. But good question. That's a really good question. We know your favorite movie, but what's the movie you hate the most? For me, it's Polar, starring Mess Mikkelsen, and it also has the girl from High School Musical. I have no idea how it managed to get a 6 on IMDb. It's just a really bad John Wick ripoff that tries to fit as much R-rated stuff in it. By the way, this has made me think also a kind of fun college movie, i.e. Pitch Perfect. Weirdly, I also kind of like that vibe. I don't know, just putting it out there. It's sort of like a fun, like that American college that like, is in the movies, and it's Pitch Perfect, basically. Like that kind of vibe. Anyway, least favorite movie or movie I hate the most. I mean, my go-to answer has always been Planet 51, just because I saw it as a kid and didn't like it. But, I mean, I haven't seen it since then. I can't really think of movie I hate the most. Like, movie I really, really didn't like. Like, in recent memory, it'd be like Wonder Woman 1984. I really didn't like that. But That's not like the movie I hate the most in the world. Gemini Man was really, really bad. The Nun, maybe? I don't know. I can't really think of a movie that like I really personally like have a hatred towards right now, which is funny considering how many like angry, grumpy grandpa rants I go on the pod. Yeah, I can think of like bad movies, but I can't think of one that like genuinely annoys me as much. I'll try to think of that actually. I'll try to think of that so I have an answer next time. But yeah, I have not seen Polar, and I'm sad Mess Mickelson is in something bad. What's your favorite no plot, just vibes film? Oof, that's a good one as well. Boyhood comes to mind. I only seen it the one time, but I really loved how that movie made me feel. It was just like a very sweet, heartwarming film, and like about life, and you know, that's the ultimate like no plot movie, really. I love the vibe of like the Grand Budapest Hotel, but that does have a plot, you know. The vibe of like really bad comedies, this is kind of a weird one, but there was a period in my life where like I just loved watching bad comedies. Like I can't even think of them now, but like 2014, 2015 bad comedies, because it was just like relaxing, because you didn't have to think about anything, you just kind of like watched it, and like it wasn't even that funny, but it's just sort of dumb and silly, and like I kind of like that, and there was no plot in those, that's for sure. I'm trying to think of like, because movies that have like really nice aesthetics that I love like the vibe of, they do also have like a plot, so I can't really think of a great one right now. That's the problem with doing these, like when my brain's kind of just at its end, because I'm sure there are tons of examples, but I can't think of a great one right now. Like La La Land, I love the vibe of that, but again, that has a plot. Yeah. No, I can't think of anything great at the moment. A great example, but that's a good question. We will back you up, Charlie. Charlie Cox on If Someone Else Was Cast as Daredevil. I would go down into my basement, I would find my Daredevil mask, and then hunt them down. I'd make them fight me for it. Yeah, Charlie Cox would have an army behind him, because that man deserves to play Daredevil. I really hope he's back in No Way Home. And then, I mean, oh god, I gotta go. I've been recording for so long, I gotta go, but Endgame was, I'd say, amazing. Time to bring back this legendary tweet. He ain't even in costume and looked like someone that tells hella riddles for no reason. That's a very good point. I guess that's an insult or a compliment. It's probably not a compliment. Anyway, I'm excited to see Paul Dano in that movie. Okay, yeah, I think we just reached the end of it then, just in time. Did I cover this last time? My favorite movies? First Class, favorite movie. Fair enough. Like Indiana Jones on there. Emperor's New Groove. Glad to see that getting love. Cool. All right, so we made it to the end. I really got to go. Wow, time really got away from me. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of BHL's Movie Hour. Again, hope to do these every 2 weeks. These are fun to make. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, be sure to like this video. Check out my Instagram and Twitter at BHL_Hudson, my TikTok at BHL Hudson. Check out this other podcast that I do with a friend of mine where we talk about movies, TV shows, a bunch of nonsense. It's called The Poorly Planned Podcast. We don't just talk about the same stuff here that I talk about here, by the way. Like, there is a little bit of crossover, but I try to keep it, like, so they're different things, so it's not just a repetition. And subscribe for more videos and or podcasts like the one you just watched and or listened to. Thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you next time.